Jamie, none.
Joined. Joined.
Sean McKillop.
Joined.
Jeff Gillies.
Joined.
Stacy Zucker.
Joined.
Alex Johnson.
Joined. Joined.
Becky Beck.
Joined. Joined.
Cam Galindo.
Joined. An anonymous participant has joined. An anonymous participant has left.
Bill Twaring.
Joined.
Dawn.
Joined. Joined.
Paul.
Joined.
Hello?
All right, everyone. It is 6 o'clock, and welcome to our board meeting for April 27th. So I'd like to welcome everyone back. We just had our committee of the whole meeting
Joined.
moments ago. With that, I will begin.
Joined.
Oh, we'll just give a few more minutes for everyone to get logged on.
Joined.
And I'll just take this moment to remind folks to call in several minutes earlier to ensure that we can start punctually at 6 o'clock. So with that, I am going to call this meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded audibly, which will be posted to our website for constituents and the public to be able to access and hear. With that, we'll start with the HWDSB land acknowledgement. The Hamilton-Wentworth District School Board acknowledges our presence on the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee Confederacy land as determined by the Dish with One Spoon Treaty. The Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt represents the treaty relationships between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and Anishinaabe with respect to sharing the land and resources thereon.
Joined.
The intent of this agreement is for all nations sharing this territory to do so responsibly, respectfully, and sustainably in perpetuity. We respect the long-standing relationships with the local Indigenous communities, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and the Six Nations of the Grand River. And folks, I'll just remind you to put yourselves on mute for this meeting. And for viewers, and sorry, my correction, we are live streaming this evening, unlike last week. So we are live tonight. And what the public can see is an empty boardroom, but they can hear our voices. So with that, just a quick reminder to folks that as we go through this meeting, I will be calling out roll call for questions and answers, and we will then be doing a negative vote, meaning that I will ask trustees if they are voting against, if there's anyone who's voting against a motion, and at that time you should unmute yourself and indicate so. Otherwise, we'll assume that you are voting in favor of the motion. So with that, we will now move on to the singing of O Canada. All right, folks, the singing of O Canada has concluded. We'll now move along to approval of the, just before we move on to approval of the agenda, I am going to do a roll call to confirm attendance. Do we have Trustee Archer? Here. Trustee Bingham? Here. Trustee Danko?
Present.
Trustee Dietz? Present. Trustee Galindo?
Present.
Trustee Miller?
Present. Thank you.
Trustee Mulholland?
Present.
Trustee Pagan-Miller?
Here.
Trustee Tutt?
Present.
Student Trustee Meddy,
I'm here.
Student Trustee Prozic,
Present.
and Trustee Buck, did I call your name previously?
I don't think you did, but I am here.
Wonderful, thank you. So with that, we are all in attendance, and we have Director Figueredo as well as the rest of Exec Council on the line. And so with that, we'll move to approval of the agenda. It will be motioned. The motion will be moved by Trustee Danko, seconded by Trustee Buck. Is there anyone who is voting against approval of the agenda? Hearing none, the motion passes. Declarations of conflict of interest. I did not receive any declarations in writing earlier, as is required, but I will still ask. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5, confirmation of the minutes from April 20th. And I'll give trustees just a few moments. Are there any issues regarding the confirmation of the minutes from April 20th? Hearing none, we'll move along to reports from trustee special committees. Item 6, Finance and Facilities report from April 16th, 2020. Vice Chair Danko, can you please bring forward the report?
Thank you. And through the chair, I'll direct trustees to page 6-1 in the package, the board package for the Finance and Facilities report. We have an action item and some monitoring items on this report. The action item is the 2020-2021 Accommodation Strategy Schedule. Trustees may recall that back in April of 2018, the Ministry of Education released revised pupil accommodation guidelines. The next step that was identified was for the ministry to release additional supporting documentation and templates for boards to use in pupil accommodation reviews. But at this point, these templates have yet to be received as of April 15th, 2020. And as indicated by the ministry, while these supports are being developed, there are to be no new pupil accommodation reviews. So as per the Ministry of Education direction, the future accommodation reviews have not been scheduled, but they are identified on our schedule as remaining. And you will see the schedule in Appendix A in the report package. So the accommodation strategy schedule includes anything that has been completed from 2011-2012 up to 2020-21, and it shows the 3 remaining planning areas that are yet to be reviewed. At this time, we typically have to approve that accommodation strategy schedule. So with the adjustments that the outstanding reviews have not been scheduled but are identified as remaining, we recommend that the board approve the 2020-21 accommodation strategy schedule, as you see in Appendix A. Our monitoring items included an update on construction projects due to the ministerial order on the on what is deemed essential services versus not. And so staff did provide an update on that. We have found out that school construction and other benchmark projects have been deemed non-essential, and so a pause has been put on construction. Currently, all of our projects are on schedule, and opening dates are not expected to be impacted, but that will depend on the length of the ministerial order and the pause on construction, obviously. Maintenance projects required for safety reasons can continue, and QP will be completing work orders if they meet the requirements for essential work. If the pause on construction projects is of a significant length and appears that opening dates could be impacted, we will make sure that communication will be shared with the affected communities. The last item is the budget development discussion for 2020-21, and staff presented additional information they'd received the week before. The ministry has let us know that the GSN, the Grants for Student Needs, will likely be released in May and not in April as they previously indicated. Currently, there has not been a change to our June 30th date when we must submit our balanced budget. Under our projected enrollment and the best information available with regards to the GSN, which is expecting no new increases or decreases in the base funding, we have estimated revenues expected for the GSN, and we've been conservative in staffing projections and expenditures. So our revenues compared to expenses at the current time in our budget process are expected to result in a projected surplus of approximately $0.5 million, and that is money that can be allocated through our budget process. So I would like to move the report and just acknowledge the hard work that our finance and facilities staff have been doing in getting this information to us and working through a challenging time. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Danko. So with that, I will now open this up to questions, and I will go through the roll call. Trustee Archer.
No questions, thank you.
And I'll have Trustee Archer second the report as well. Trustee Bingham.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Buck.
No questions.
Trustee Danko, did you have any questions to your report?
No questions.
Trustee Dees.
Sorry, no
Trustee
questions.
Dees. Thank you. Trustee Galindo.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Miller.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Mulholland.
No question.
Trustee Paken-Miller.
No questions.
Trustee Tutt.
No question, thank you.
Student Trustee Meddy.
No questions, thank you.
Student Trustee Prozik.
Nope, no questions at this time, thanks.
Thank you, trustees. So on the motion to move the report by Trustee Danko, seconded by Trustee Archer, are there any trustees who are not in favor of the motion? Hearing none, the report passes. Moving along now to our board meeting schedule 2020-2021, and I will turn to the Director Figueredo to bring forward the report.
Thank you, through the chair. If the trustees can see on page 7-1 in their package, this report is brought annually. I'd like to thank Trustee Officer Heather Miller for supporting putting this together. As we know, every year before the organizational meeting.
Sorry, Director Figueredo, we are having a hard time hearing you. Can you please speak loudly into the microphone?
Yes, let me try again. Is this helpful?
Yes, that is more helpful.
Okay. So if trustees can see on page 7-1 is the annual report we bring. And I thank Trustee Heather Miller, Trustee Officer Heather Miller for putting this together. Every year we bring a recommended actions that the board meeting schedule for the following year be approved. So what trustees see in front of them is exactly that. For September 2020 to June 2021, our bylaw 1.16 states that we do this before each organizational meeting each year. This is very early, but we always do it in the spring because it allows us time to then plan the other trustee special committees around these. And as you look in the attached document, that we are following the same flow of 2 board meetings a month in general, but there's always some flexibility if other things arise. So that's the report in front of trustees this evening.
Thank you, Director Figueredo. I will now move through roll call with regards to questions. Trustee Archer.
No questions.
Trustee Bingham.
No questions, I'm good with this, thank you.
Trustee Buck.
No questions.
Trustee Danko.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Dees.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Galindo.
I don't have questions at this time. Thank you.
Trustee Miller.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Mulholland.
No questions.
Trustee Paikin-Miller.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Tutt.
No questions, thank you.
Student Trustee Meddy.
No questions, thank you.
Student Trustee Prozic.
No questions at this time. Thanks.
Okay, so I'll have the report moved by Trustee Mulholland and seconded by Trustee Paikin-Miller. Are there any trustees who are against this motion? Hearing none, the report does pass. With that, we'll now move on to item 8, a report from Committee of the Whole private session held earlier this evening. Vice Chair Danko?
Thank you, and through the chair, there is nothing to report at this time.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Moving along to oral reports, we'll turn to our student trustees to report on local activities and Ontario Student Trustees Association report. We'll start with Student Trustee Ahona Meddy.
So for Student Senate, for Student Senate, we held a virtual conjoined meeting with both elementary and secondary senators.
Can you speak a little bit louder,
of course,
Trustee Ahona?
Thank you. For Student Senate, we held a virtual conjoined meeting with both elementary and secondary senators. This meeting was held on April 8th through Microsoft Teams, and we were able to discuss student concerns and clarifications for senators regarding our next steps in regards to distance learning. And with this, we've kind of been able to create a streamline of communication between ourselves and senators. And we've had senators constantly reaching out with concerns that are specific to their kind of respective schools, and that's been extremely helpful. So we hope to continue to work with our Student Senate through these online platforms, and I'll let Cameron cover also.
Student Trustee Prozic?
Thanks, to the chair. So, OSAECO has been hard at work at the provincial level. We've been working really closely with the Ministry of Education on the distance learning at that level and kind of providing the frontline student feedback to the Minister of Education. He's been very receptive. I'd like to thank Minister Lecce for how closely he's been working with us and how seriously he's been taking our feedback. As well, we are continuing to market the equity survey. So on equity in education, it's an Ontario-wide survey for all Ontario students. So if anyone's listening in, the link to the survey is studentsurvey.ca for OSAECO. And so we're conducting that survey to just evaluate the current status of equity in education across the province. We'll be compiling a report based on the results of that. And then lastly, also going through a little bit of a governance review. There's an internal team kind of working on outdated procedure and policy and just updating everything to make sure it's current and with the time. So that's it from OSAECO, and that concludes the report.
Thank you very much. So I'll just I'll go through. I'll just ask broadly: are there any questions for either of our student trustees? Hearing none. Thanks.
Actually,
yeah.
Alex, can I ask a
Trustee
question?
Dees? Yes.
That's Trustee Buck. I did want to hear a little bit more detail from Student Trustee Meddy about Senate and some of the feedback that they've been receiving from our senators. I can imagine what some of the issues are, but I just want to pick your brain and find out if there's anything that we're not hearing captured in media right now that you can comment on.
We did take
minutes
minutes from that meeting, so we probably could send out the internal minutes to any trustees that would want that.
Student Trustee Mehdi, are you able to, you can also respond right now, but if you'd like to share those with Heather, Heather can share those with trustees.
Yeah, for sure. We can do that for sure.
And if I could just jump in really quick, we're also going through Trustee Officer Miller, we're going to extend an invite to trustees to our next online meeting. So if you can find the time, I know it's a busy time, but if you can find the time, just hop on for a bit. It's actually some really great feedback we gather, and we'll also distribute the minutes to Trustee Officer Miller as well.
Thank you for that. Trustee Buck, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I appreciate getting a chance to read the minutes. I did wonder about like what some of the broad topics were. Well, not too broad, but yeah, I can be patient and wait.
Okay, so we will, Student Trustee Mehdi or Student Trustee Prozic, are you able to provide a few of the broad themes that have come forward from your last meeting? We'll start with Student Trustee Mehdi.
Yeah, so similar to what we've been seeing a lot of in the media, there was a lot of concern from students in regards to the distribution of technology. And I have actually got feedback from a few students about this, and like that's something that's been like students have been satisfied with to this point. And we also had a lot of concern about mental health supports and how they might be kind of taking place during this pandemic. And so we were able to provide students with the links to the mental health resources that our school board provides on the website.
Thank you. And Student Trustee Prozic?
Yeah, a few things came up in the meetings. A lot of it was just concerns. We feel a lot of concerns regarding distance learning, kind of what we know as of now. There's a lot of Q&A. A lot of senators had questions, whether it be from students from their school or just students that have reached out to them on social media and stuff like that. So we're hoping they can distribute those answers. As well, we provided a lot of the board material, as Student Trustee Mehdi mentioned. We've provided a lot of the board material that's available as of now to them. And we've asked them to distribute it to their networks and make sure that we try to keep as many students as possible in the loop. It's difficult during times like these, but I believe our senators are doing a great job representing the students that they represent. And we're excited for our next meeting. I feel like it's going to be, we're going to feel a lot more concerns, and it's going to be kind of a lot more prepared. This first meeting was more so kind of getting our ears oriented and kind of finding where we are and answering a lot of questions regarding where we are now. So now that, students have had some time in distance learning and it's not just after it's launched, there should be a lot more kind of feedback to gather.
Thank you, student trustees, and we look forward to receiving the invite to your next virtual Student Senate meeting. With that, we'll now, was there any other questions for our student trustees? Hearing none, we'll now move on to the director's report. Director Figueredo?
So thank you through the chair. I hope people can hear me.
If you can just try and speak a little bit more loudly, please.
Okay, I'll do my best to speak loudly through the microphone at the boardroom. So my report, I'd like to begin with a reminder to all of us around the phases of response in a crisis and how challenging this has been since the March 12th announcement. And I want to preface this around how staff and students in our community have responded. When we first heard the news, our immediate response, a lot of confusion, ambiguity, and a lot of anxiety. And then how we had to move through some short and midterm sort of solutions. What are some possible outcomes? And as we enter into sort of phase 3, there are patterns emerging. And I'm looking forward to also reading the notes from Student Senate, because I believe some patterns are emerging. I want to speak to some of those patterns this evening. When I look at our strategic directions, it's been clear to me over the last week or two when we've been reflecting as a senior team and hearing some of the responses. When I look at our 5 strategic directions around student learning and achievement, positive culture and well-being, effective communication, and partnership, The one that's been removed from us, which has been a huge priority in our district, is school renewal. I preface that by saying that we know how important and how hard our trustees have worked and staff have worked to create a capital plan, because we know how important the physical learning environment is, and that physical learning environment is now out of our control. And there is a huge range of physical learning environments that our staff are teaching in, and also, more importantly, our students and families are trying to learn in, and there's a huge range across our district. So where we've really been stretched when we think about our commitments is the one around equity. I do want to highlight, though, that our partnerships that we've created in HWDSB have stepped forward from our partnership with City, Public Health, our nutrition partners, our Hamilton Student Success Foundation, and the list goes on, especially to address, and our partnership with School Mental Health Ontario, especially to address what we're seeing emerging as one key pattern is some of the mental health concerns, the anxiety that we see our youth drawing from. And what's very difficult for many of us as adults is we don't have a reference point. We don't have a point we can say, well, I remember when I went through this, because it's new to almost all of us. But thankful for the partners who are stepping in to help address some of these mental health issues. Another issue that has surfaced because of the lack of employment for many is the need for food and nutrition. And we're thankful for our partners again for stepping up, who've stepped up to work with our foundation, Hamilton Food Share, Food for Kids, Taste Buds, and being creative, and also our school staff who've repurposed and redistributed the food in schools to try to help our partners. So that is a pattern emerging. And the last pattern I want to speak to is connected to the importance of what is in our control. So when the physical learning environment has been abruptly removed, it is very difficult because that is out of our control as a board and as staff. But what we have heard loud and clear is that what is in our control is trying to create a standard virtual learning environment. We always emphasize in HWDSB the importance of a blended learning environment in the physical and digital. More than ever, it's been clear to us that we need a standardized virtual learning platform to make it easier on our families, to make it easier on our students, so there's consistency. And more will be coming to trustees, as we have learned through many staff who've been engaged in professional learning on our standards that we're supporting, that come September, we'll be giving an update to trustees before September at our program around moving forward clearly in September to a standard virtual learning environment, so we can support our students and families so they have a consistent way to approach the digital world in HWDSB. I want to close then by saying thank you to so many staff across our district who have stepped up during this difficult time, and we know this is difficult for many of our staff as well as they're dealing with uncertainties. But very thankful for how staff have stepped up. We know that it's not perfect. We know that we're better every week we go along the way. And we're looking forward to getting the feedback and learning a bit more from our stakeholders as we engage in this process. So, and again, thank you for the trustees with their patience and support as we move through this time of great uncertainty. But as I keep on saying, public education, although it's not deemed as an essential service by the provincial emergency declaration order, it is essential for our families that we try to do what we can and add value at a critical time for our students and to provide as much structure as we can to keep the learning moving forward and to address the inequities with our partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Figueredo. I am going to move to roll call to find out if there are any questions for the director at this time. Trustee Archer.
No questions.
Trustee Bingham.
No questions, but I do say thank you to the director and to all the staff for everything that they've done, because it has been unprecedented. but they have stepped up to the plate very quickly, and thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you. Trustee Buck.
Trustee Bingham just summed up everything I was going to say. Just a big thank you to the director and to all of our staff who are making lemonade right now.
Thank you. Trustee Danko.
Thank you, and I have to echo the thanks that my trustee colleagues have mentioned. One thing I wanted to just add is thank you to the director for acknowledging the benefit of having some standardized platforms for families. That is the one common thread of feedback that I've heard from families, is that when we're using too many different options, and I appreciate the diverse options that are out there that can be really great if we leverage them, it can be overwhelming for families. So I love that not only are we doing our best to bring this to families in their homes, but we're also trying to adapt as we hear that feedback. So thank you for highlighting that, and thank you again to staff for all their work.
Thank you, Trustee Danko. Director Figueredo, did you want to respond at all?
Thank you through the chair. I think trustees will see further direction coming this spring to our program committee about how we are going to operationalize that, and that we need to have a very clear standard, and we have the tools for September implementation. So thank you for that acknowledgement, and the feedback we're hearing from parents is helping us drive this decision.
Trustee Dees.
No questions, and I just want to add to what the other trustees have said. Just thank you to the tremendous amount of work that staff has put into this, and the honesty and the integrity that has kind of shined through all the communication that you've done. And just thank you.
Trustee Galindo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, echoing a lot of the comments that have been said, a big thank you to staff. For me, it's a reminder that it's during times of great challenges that we get to see the real value and the leadership that we have. So I just want to echo those comments to say thank you to the director and the staff and our entire system. Thank you.
Trustee Miller.
No questions, but yes, thank you to everyone on staff. This has been quite an intense period for our staff, for trustees, for our families, and our students. So thank you to everyone who's been making these last few weeks possible, and especially as we head into, the next unknown time. So thank you so much.
Trustee Mulholland.
No questions.
Trustee Pagan-Miller.
Oops. I just want to understand the process or provision being made, if any, for feedback on how all of this is going down with families. Are we going to record that? Is there going to be any way of understanding how things are really going, evidence-based? That's my question.
Thank you. Trustee Director Figueredo?
Thank you for the question, Trustee Miller. At tomorrow's information session, we'll be providing an update. We will be engaging our research analytics department to really understand and do some learning. We know there's already, that was shared with me today, some learning that's emerged from other jurisdictions around distance learning as a result of COVID-19, and some patterns that have emerged and some best practices. But at the information session tomorrow, Learning Services will be providing a bit of an update in terms of how we're going to start measuring some engagement and learning from our stakeholders, and our research analytics department is going to be gathering that for us systemically, so we can learn from it and move forward with some learning around 21st century learning as a result of this.
Okay, that's great. I just have one other thing I'd like to ask you, and that is with respect to the mental health aspect of this. I do get some feedback that it's very stressful for a lot of parents and families. You know, it's been stressful for everybody. And I think the board has done a terrific job, frankly. And again, I thank you all, too. But I just wondered about the mental health aspect. And are we going to be able to address that as well?
Director Figueredo?
Yes, so thank you for that. What we're hearing so far is that it's clear that distance learning is not for all students and not for all families. So when we think about what we can learn around this is two themes in terms of how are students learning some of the key things we need around around literacy and numeracy and heading towards graduation. And the other piece is around our positive culture and well-being. What are we learning around students feeling safe, supported, and connected, and around their own well-being? So that's another theme that we are getting feedback on and that we would like to learn more.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Manny. That's great. All right.
Thank you. Trustee Tutt?
No questions, thank you.
Student Trustee Meddy?
No questions, thank you.
Student Trustee Prozic?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. So we'll now move on to the chair's report. So I'll just begin by stating that today marks week 6 of school closure. And during this time, we have seen trustees supporting our communities through encouraging and making donations to food banks, making blood donations, supporting their communities such as Mountain Kids Club with regards to ensuring that community celebrations continue and that food resources are available within the community, through going on to Facebook Live and providing Q&A for their communities, as well as promoting mental health supports within our communities, and also supporting the delivery of technology to our students. I want to highlight that this has been an extremely challenging time for our students, for our staff, and for our parents. And that during this time, we have received a lot of feedback. That when we receive feedback as an organization, as we're moving through a crisis, we seek to be not to be firm, but to be nimble, so that we can respond to concerns as they rise. During these times, while this experience has been very dark for many of our families and our students, and for many of us, quite frankly, at the same time, there's been a number of good news stories that have come out. Good news stories where we have provided PPE that we have in our own stocks within our schools and sharing that with our local public health authority. Good news around the provisioning of 7,000 devices to our students to ensure that there is that our students continue to be supported and that there's equity in technology, and that our students have access to the internet and access to their online classrooms. There's been good news stories when it comes to the donations that have been made, both from our community partners, such as the announcement from the Hamilton Community Foundation of providing a donation to us, as well as donations from us to other organizations, such as the Kids Help Phone. I think that overall this represents that in times of need, Hamilton and specifically HWDSB does pull together, and that we are stronger when we work together. At this time, there's been a lot of uncertainty around the future of education. Just yesterday, the education minister announced that school closures would be extended into May. And we are seeing in other jurisdictions across Canada and around the world that often students are not returning until the fall. the one thing that I think is so important is we as a Board of Trustees continue to move forward is that we continue to hold ourselves to our commitment of being transparent and accountable to our constituents, but also that we are committed to showing great care and compassion. We are, as we move forward, it is so important that we place the health and safety of our students and staff first and foremost. And as we begin to learn plans around how public education will unfold in Ontario, that we ask questions around how PPE will be distributed and provided and provisioned within our schools, what physical distancing will look like, and what protocols will be introduced as guided by public health. We also will need to keep a strong focus on student achievement, looking at equity, looking at supporting our students to catch up and to ensure that gaps are addressed when they return, when it's safe for students to return, and also to ensure throughout the whole, at this time as well as in the future, that supports and opportunities continue to be provided to ensure student success. And I have full belief that our board will continue to rise to the occasion. I sometimes wonder what our newest trustees must think, as it has certainly been a very steep learning curve with many complex issues that this board has faced since the start of this term. However, on every issue that we have faced, we have done so with integrity, and we have done so with a vision and commitment to transparency, accountability, care, and compassion. And so with that, that concludes my chair's report. And so I will just ask, is there any questions? Do trustees have any questions for me at this time? Hearing none, we'll have a motion to adjourn by Trustee Mulholland, seconded by Trustee Archer. And do we have any trustees that are against a motion to adjourn? Hearing none, with that, the motion does pass. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, trustees, and please stay safe.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Hey, everybody.